Clare FM's In the Garden with Clonroad Garden Centre, Clonroad Business Park in the heart of Ennis. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, our friendly staff are here to help your garden grow. Open 7 days a week, Monday to Sunday.
And would you believe it, Judy Beck from the Clonroad Garden Centre sitting directly across from me as ever. Judy, how are you?
Good morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for being with us. €25 voucher for the Clonroad Garden Centre to be won for one lucky listener. So send in your gardening questions, which many of you have done already, but still plenty of time to get your questions in for Judy. Your gardening question with your name to 086 1800 964. But that is all to come because you're going to take us through this week's discussion or topic, Judy, which is the beautiful rose.
Absolutely. And hopefully not the most ridiculous thing you'll ever buy would be a rose. Going on the
Far from it.
Absolutely. And especially if you go by some of the guidelines that we might give you today on how to grow them and how to pick them. And June is the prime time for roses. So you'll see lots of roses flowering in gardens at the moment. And that just puts people in the frame of mind of, why don't I go and get a rose, a couple of roses for my garden? Because they are one of the longest flowering of all the plants. And I always say between roses and hydrangeas, you can't go wrong. They flower for such a long time and they give such a good show in the garden. They really pay their way. But they're not the easiest plant in some respects to grow, even though they're very tough. They can be a little bit tricky. So I suppose the first thing you have to do is decide on which type of rose you want. And lots of people get mixed up. They say, what's the difference between a hybrid tea and a floribunda rose? They'd be two very popular type of roses you'd buy. So the hybrid teas have very large flowers, and they grow one large flower on a single stem. So really good for cutting and for bringing into the house. And then the floribundas give lots of small flowers, continuously flowering, lots of small flowers on one stem. So that's the main difference. And they tend not to be such a big shrub as the hybrid teas. But then we also have the climbers and ramblers, which people know for trellises and walls. And the ground cover roses, which are low growing and spreading, and patio roses, which are grown specifically, you can use them for pots. So ground cover and patio roses you can put into pots because they're not such big roses. So that brings us on to why they can't grow in pots. And the main reason that roses don't do well in pots, apart from the ground cover and the patio roses, is because they are such hungry, thirsty plants.
So there has to be a lot going in to make them look so well. And I was just thinking as well, Judy, when you were going through the different, selecting the right rose, it's one of those flowers where whatever one you go with, you really can't go wrong because they're all fabulous looking.
Well, they are. And I suppose the most fabulous looking ones, that there's a good bit of work that goes into getting them right. And that starts with the planting process. So roses, they need a good rich soil. They don't do well on poor sandy soils. They love a clay soil, a nice rich clay soil, because they love their hungry plant. So when you're planting them, you need to give them a bit of an oomph. So by oomph I mean add in some manure or rotted compost that you've made in your garden, and plenty of nutrients. So really important to get the planting hole right. And don't plant a rose where you've had roses before. It's not known not to be a good thing is to replace a rose, dig out a rose and then put another rose in the same place. So nice fresh ground, lots of nutrients, planted away from the wall. So because walls beside the wall tends to be dry, and roses, as I was saying, need plenty of water. They love our cool, damp climate. It really suits them. So just if you can plant them a little bit out from the wall, and of course if you are putting a patio rose into a pot, they're the smaller roses I was talking about, just keep in mind that if they dry out, you're just creating extra problems for yourself. Okay. Because when they dry out, you're putting them under stress, and the stress brings that dreaded mildew and dreaded black spot that you get on the leaves of roses. So stressed roses are where you put roses where the ground's not prepared, that you're going to always come across these problems in the future.
Okay. In terms of sunlight, do they need a lot of it?
So roses flower much better where they have sun, so they don't suit shady areas of the garden. They need a nice sunny part where they get at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. When we do get the sun, of course, which at the moment doesn't seem to be very often.
It's only June. I mean, it's a bit early to be expecting the sun.
So give them the best chance. We're only in the middle of summer.
I know.
It's only the middle of November. I mean June. Yeah.
Who needs a calendar?
Yeah. So make sure you put the roses where they have the best chance of getting sun, because you will get much better flowers if you do that.
Okay. The planting process. Take us through the steps, Judy, of what you need to do and maybe not do in terms of planting your rose.
So when you dig the hole, dig it twice the size of the root ball of the rose. Of course, you can plant roses any time of year. Right through the summer, it doesn't matter as long as they come in a pot. So dig your hole roughly twice the size of the pot, add in your nutrients, add in your farmyard manure or your organic compost, add that into the bottom of the hole, and then place the plant level with the top of the surrounding ground and backfill it in then and firm it in with your foot and give it a really good watering. As I say, they're hungry, greedy plants. They're like teenagers. They never stop eating.
There's a comparison. Rose and teenager. Okay. So plenty of watering and feeding. Do they take a lot of food?
Yeah, so you can feed twice actually. So you give them a good feed in the spring and another one in June or July after the first flush of roses. And in the you can also mulch them with farmyard manure, and that locks the moisture into the ground and stops weeds growing up around the rose, which doesn't look great. And of course you can get your hands all scratched from trying to weed in around those prickly roses.
And speaking of which, pruning and maintenance is important. So what should people be doing to maintain and prune their roses?
Well, if we go for maintenance first, and deadheading all the time, every few days in the summer, keeps them looking really nice, really fresh, and stops any mildew getting into the dead buds and spreading throughout the rose. So definitely keep deadheading. Very important in June, July to keep them flowering, and then depending on the rose, they're normally pruned in the winter. So you can give them a good hard cut back in the winter, and they're very resilient plants. They'll pop up again bigger and better next year.
Okay, of course, with every plant or vegetable or fruit that you tell us about, there's always a threat from some sort of pest, or, you mentioned a black spot there, diseases. What are roses' kryptonite? What should people be wary of?
Oh, so the black spot and the powdery mildew. We get so many questions from customers about these, because some roses are very susceptible. Some roses are more susceptible than others, although it's almost inevitable you're going to get powdery mildew and black spot on roses. Some, as I was saying, some varieties are more susceptible than others. First of all, make sure that this rose isn't stressed, so it's not too thirsty, that you keep it well watered, and when you're pruning that you've opened up the centre of the plant so that all the branches are not crossing over. You can buy fungicides for it, but the most important thing is to try and prevent it to start with. And then the pests, of course, green fly. Roses are very well known for green fly and white fly. If you can, encourage as much as you can of wildlife into the garden. Flies and wasps eat green fly, as do hoverflies. So the more variety that you have in the garden of biodiversity and bringing in all these other insects that eat green fly and white fly is the best thing. You can also wash them off with a hose. You can actually wash these off your roses. If all else fails, you can buy sprays for the green fly.
Okay, so there you go. Some important steps in terms of roses. 086 1800 964 for your gardening questions for Judy. Remember, there's a €25 voucher for the Clonroad Garden Centre up for grabs. Before we get to those questions though, Judy, a few tasks or jobs for the week ahead for our keen gardeners?
Well, it's been really windy, and I know in my garden some of my perennials, tall perennials are kind of flopping a bit, like the hollyhocks and delphiniums. So might need to do some support of your taller perennials, and you can use bamboo sticks, or you can get purpose-made support rings for these to hold them up. And a good time now to do that before they get even taller. Strawberries. If you're picking your strawberries in the garden, make sure you pick up off a little bit of the stalk with the strawberry. That means that the strawberries will stay fresh longer in the fridge, and also it stops grey mould from getting into any fruit that's left behind. Because if you leave a little bit of the strawberry on the stalk, still on the plant, then that invites some grey mould into the plant. So good thing to do. And the other thing, if you're growing sunflowers, you can get bamboo sticks now to make sure that they're supported and that they don't grow too tall and bend over and break.
Okay, so there you go, folks. Get cracking. Judy's going to be checking on you for next Monday. Let's get on to the listeners' questions. Still time to send one in if you want. 086 1800 964. And the first question is an apt one because it relates to roses. From Marie, who says, should I do something now with my David Austin roses? They're flowering now, but I haven't done anything with them.
Well, the most important thing you can do is deadhead them. So as soon as they start dropping petals, take off those deadheads, and that will encourage them to keep coming. And then from now on, either in the next week or two, you can give them a feed. So you can actually get a rose feed, liquid or granules, and give them a good feed to keep them. Give them some, as I was saying, they're very hungry plants, so that will help to keep them flowering.
Okay, there you go, Marie. Some very good advice for you. Bridie Mac is also looking for some good advice. She says, hi Alan, would you ask Judy what weed killer we can use on a lawn without killing the grass or feeding it as it grows too fast?
So you can actually get just a lawn weed killer, so it's selective weed killer. It kills, as they say, it kills weeds, not lawns. So it only kills broadleaf weeds, and it doesn't kill grass. So you need, when you go into the garden centre, you need to ask for a weed killer specifically for lawns.
Okay, our next question is from Anthony in Kilrush, who says, good morning Alan and Judy. My aloe vera plant has become rather large. Can I split it, and any recommendations about doing it?
Yes, you can take what we call like the babies off, because they do grow rather large, but they get all these little aloe veras around. But make sure when you do use the proper compost. So the compost that you use for aloe veras is the same compost as you use for cacti and succulents. So you can drop into Clonroad Garden Centre. We have that particular compost for cacti, succulents and for aloe veras.
Okay, our next question. Well, I wouldn't be in the garden without Kane Corafin. Harriet says, good morning Alan and Judy. I have a beautiful Escalonia hedge. I sowed it roughly 27 years ago. All 90 pieces that I planted back then grew to a fabulous hedge. This time of year there should be lovely pink flowers all over it, but there's only an odd one. I wonder why. Otherwise it's very healthy. It sounds like Kay's putting in the hard yards anyway. Yeah,
okay. I wonder, did a late frost get the buds an effect? Sometimes that can happen if the buds are out and we get a frost, which I think we did have a late frost this year. It may have affected the buds. So as long as the plant is healthy, you may not get the flowers this year, but hopefully they'll be back next year. That's the only. Otherwise, it could maybe have been pruned when the flower buds were there. Possibly, I wonder if he pruned it when the flower buds were forming and cut off the flower buds. That's another possibility.
Okay, best of luck with that, Kay, and some serious work going on there. Bridget Conn says, I bought some lobelia petunia but didn't get to plant them outside due to the rain. They have wilted within 3 days. What can I do to revive them?
Oh, maybe it's lobelias and petunias.
Lobelia, just a comma, petunia. I presume it's lobelias and petunias, but didn't get to plant them out due to the rain, and they've wilted within a number of days. What can she do to revive them?
Oh, I wonder if they were put in the shed or something, maybe. So I would say put them out and put them into a bucket of water. I don't know whether they've wilted because they've had lack of water or because they were put in somewhere dark. But put them out in the sun and put them into a bucket of water. And if that's a lack of water, that might revive them. It depends how far gone they are.
Okay, Garode Kerwin and Ruan, how are you, Garode? Says, I've been growing giant strawberries, Maximus, in raised beds in my garden for the kids during the past 5 years. They seem to have plenty of creepers, but the yield has decreased year on year. Have you any advice to get my yield back up?
So strawberry plants, they do best for 3 years, and after that the yield goes down. So the first year they're not great, second year brilliant strawberries, loads of them, third year brilliant, and then they start to go downhill. So you can either use those runners that they're putting off to make new plants for yourself if you want to do that. But cutting off the runners actually will help the yield. So it might be best just to start with brand new plants next year. If you want to cut off the runners this year, and that will help to improve your yield and buy brand new plants next year. Otherwise, give up on the strawberries for this year and just take those runners and make new plants. Does that make sense?
I think it does, Gerard. Hopefully you can proceed with all of that, and hopefully your yield will come up. Now, we were talking about roses and all the different types, Judy. Listener wondering, is it possible to get blue roses?
Well, there is a couple. There's Blue Rhapsody and another one I think called Blue Moon, but they're not like true blue. They're more of a lilac blue, like a pinky blue, not blue. So is that close enough for you, listener? If so, that's the one to go with. It sounds like it is, isn't it? I think I've seen like in the shops kind of a bluey rose, but I think they do that by putting dye into the water, and then when they go up there, so it's not something you can grow in your garden.
Cheating.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question here from Geraldine Ford, who says, "Why did my dwarf Christmas tree shed its pines and looked awful? It looked an awful brownish colour. It seems to be replacing needles from the top now. What happened?"
So I wonder, is it in the ground or in a pot? Because
that would have a big impact on the outcome.
Yeah, it's usually lack of water, and if it's in a pot, it may have been lack of nutrients, lack of new compost, lack of water. If they're in the ground, it's hard to know without knowing what variety, because people call different trees Christmas trees. But she said it's growing new needle. Now, the conifers generally don't regenerate. If they're dead on the lower branches, they're not going to come back. Okay. So they might grow fine on the top, but if they're kind of dead on the lower branches, probably looking a bit unsightly, and not an awful lot you can do about that.
Okay, but sorry about that.
If you could send in a photo, that might be helpful. We could look at it again next week.
And actually, on that, if possible, particularly obviously through WhatsApp, send in pictures, because it helps illustrate the problem or the issue even further, and we can show them to Judy. Lots of questions, others I don't have time to get to, but I have time just to announce the winner of the €25 voucher for the Clonroad Garden Centre. So Bridgecons, you'll be able to buy more lobelia and petunia, I've no doubt. I'm sure they stock them.
We sure do.
And we sure do, and much more besides. So my thanks to all of you for sending in your gardening questions. Thank you to Judy Beck from the Clonroad Garden Centre for all of that. Appreciate that, and we'll chat to you again next Monday, Judy.